I'll just ask her to introduce. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to Suffering.
Not yet. I'm going to get out.
Okay.
you see.
There you are.
Good evening. Welcome to Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Left Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Left Bay family, we're rising out of the ashes together. Our topic on tonight is communication and marriage. We have with us our co-host, Bob Wood. Our guest for this evening will be Dr. Marie MacDonald. She is the host of the Marriage Hour, also on Love Bay. Listeners, if you have any questions or comments for our guest or our co-host, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. You can also text us at 437-778-3299. With that, Bob, I will turn it over for you to greet our listeners on tonight. I have to tell you, I started sharing your new title, President of Rise Out of the Ashes Inc.
Thank you. And I have to thank Tia. I was nominated for being the president of Rising Out of the Ashes, and I'm obviously very humbled and very, very privileged to be able to step into that role. And hopefully we will get things moving as we discuss some of our fundraisers and things we want to do and moving forward. And actually, if anybody's out there, we're going to do a walk a mile in her shoes somewhere. You'll get to see this crazy person in a kilt and red high heel pumps walking a mile, which she's done several times. But anyway, it's always a pleasure and an honor to be here this evening. I hope everybody's doing well and looking forward to this evening's conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So
Yes,
Left Bay Rise Out of the Ashes Inc. is my nonprofit. So in all the work that I do with Suffering in Silence, domestic violence, advocating for victims and survivors falls under that nonprofit. And Bob has graciously accepted being president of the board of directors, which I appreciate. So I'm already looking forward to the work that we're going to continue to do, because pretty much we're just continuing to do what we already do. And we're going to grow and do some more things. In Love Bay, when Dr. Marie gets here, she will greet you all in her own way. I want to share some resources with you before we start. First, I do want to share Pastor Darius Daniels. He is the pastor of Change Church. His website is dariusdaniels.com. His YouTube channel is Darius Daniels TV. And then we have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their website is www.thehotline.org. Their phone number is 1-800-799-7233. We have the Polaris Project, which is the National Human Trafficking Hotline. Their number is 1-888-373-7888. You can also text the words Be Free, BEFREE. You can text those two words to the number 233-733. And their website is polarisproject.org. Polaris is POLARIS. And then we have Befrienders Volunteer Action to Prevent Suicide. To find a helpline by your country, you can visit their website, which is befrienders.org.
May I add a couple?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
When you're done.
Yes, I am. I was just going to say, I just wanted to remind you listeners, these resources are, well, the National Domestic Violence Hotline, Polaris Project are in the United States. You can absolutely reach Pastor Daniels from wherever you log into his website and YouTube channel. But the National Domestic Violence Hotline and Polaris Project are based in the United States. I just wanted to give a reminder, wherever you are, you can look for national numbers and be directed to local agencies. So I just wanted to give that reminder.
Okay, there's the several that I have are the National Stalking Resource Center, which is 1-800-FYI-CALL, CALL, or 1-800-394-2255. And their email is help, GETHELP, at ncbc.org. The other one, and I'm sorry I don't have a website for it, but I do have the number, National Teen Dating Abuse Helpline. And that number is 1-866-331-9474. Again, 1-866-331-9474. That's the National Teen Dating Abuse Helpline. And for our listeners in South Africa, I found through the government, People Opposed to Woman Abuse, POWA. Their website is www.powa.co.za. And the telephone number, it's an international, it's 011-642-4345. And for information, their email is info, I-N-F-O, at powa.co.za. Again, that is People Opposed to Woman Abuse in South Africa.
Thank you, Bob, so much. A little bit later, would you mind sharing those again as we before we end the hour? Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. So again, listeners, please take advantage of the not only the resources that we share, but whatever resources you can find on your own. And please, again, also, if you have information that we can share, please let us know, and we absolutely will. So again, our topic on tonight is communication in marriage, and hopefully Dr. MacDonald will be here to share with us shortly. But if not, again, listeners, Bob can carry the hour. But the first thing I know I really wanted to say is that I wanted to stress that we're talking about healthy communication, because all communication is not healthy. And so what we want to focus on is on healthy communication. And so, well, Bob, I'll ask you, my first question would be, if you could describe what are some boundaries in communication. I know just from my observing yourself and Linda, I think you guys got a good handle on this. So, but what are some boundaries and communication that that should be there?
Right off the top of my head, the first boundary that I can think of is respecting the person you are communicating with. I mean, needless to say, after 43 years of marriage, it has not always been 100% perfect, and we don't agree on every little thing in the world. For instance, I'm ready to go on my trike cross country, and there's no way my wife is going to want to trike motorcycle and going cross country with me. But I mean that's I'm making light of it a little bit there, but there's a conversation. She understands, or she knows what is important to me in that conversation. Mm-hmm. She knows where my heart lay, however proper English is, proper words, in certain instances, and she respects that, and I have to do the same with her. Many times, because we are in different walks of life. I mean, as I'm in Title IX, and I deal with domestic violence, sexual assault, whatever, on campuses. And my wife is a nurse, and I'll be the very first to say it. When it comes to those types of topics, she is infinitely more intelligent than I am. And I may not understand something she's discussing at work. I let her, I respect what she's saying. I finish her statement and say, okay, do me a favor. Explain to me what you meant by that acronym, DODDD, whatever it may be. I have no idea, and I'll just kind of sit there and chuckle and say, gee, why didn't you just say the person needed a blood transfusion? But she will do the same thing with me. If I throw something that's a Title IX legal term out there. And the other one too is also when somebody says they need some space in a conversation, mm-hmm. Give it. Yes. Give it. I mean, I know myself personally, there are times I know when something, not necessarily with Lynn, with anybody, when something, the proverbial burr gets under your saddle in a conversation, and calm enough and in control enough to say, okay, do me a favor, give me 2 minutes. Just let me take a step back.
Yeah.
Let them take the step back. It's not an insult to you. It's actually what they're trying to do is keep the conversation where at the level it's at and not have things flare up.
Yeah.
Because again, I know I've used this many times, especially when I am talking about dating or domestic violence or any type of violence in a relationship, psychological and verbal violence. And I've often said, once the word's out of your mouth, whatever those words or word may be, you can't retract it. You know, it's like throwing a dart at the dartboard. You may miss that dartboard and put a hole in the wall and go, that was an accident, but there's still a hole in the wall.
Right.
And I think that's very true with conversations. I mean, people will forgive you, but there's a niche. You put a hole right next to the dartboard there, so to speak. Probably not a good analogy, but it makes the point. You can't take it.
It's a very good analogy. Even if you plug that hole, it's still there. It's still not originally what it was. And
exactly.
When you're dealing with a person, I mean that damage is real, and especially if so you may say, all right, it's a tiny hole, and you plug it. Well, and then if you put another tiny hole near it and you plug it and you keep doing that, and you're imagining this wall is a person. Well, now I got all these little tiny patched up holes all over me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so sometimes it's not maybe the great big explosive thing that you do, but over time it is the smaller things too that can be handled and taken care of. And so I wholeheartedly agree. I believe your first statement, respect, is you absolutely have to start there, and everything should come out of respect. But the next point that you made on space, I don't think we really understand how important that is. And I know when I speak with couples, being married, because, as a Christian, one of the first things that come out of people's mouths is, they want to, give you scripture. Don't let the sun go down on your anger, which is real. You don't want your anger just to fester, but you still have to acknowledge if your partner is not ready to move forward in a conversation. So I'm not advising anybody to go to bed angry. Don't do that. But, if we need to stop this conversation, if I say I need some more time, give me 20 minutes, give me a couple hours, or let's just agree to disagree right now. Let's put this on a table. Maybe we come back to this tomorrow. I think the key is not leaving it open. Don't leave it open-ended. If I say I need time, I'll specify, maybe give me an hour or so or whatever. And if it comes to happen that the sun does go down, if we're still not seeing eye to eye, that doesn't mean that I can't say goodnight to you. That doesn't
absolutely.
mean that we can't end our evening peaceably, still communicate properly with each other, still have dinner, put the kids to bed or whatever, but we just know, all right, on tomorrow, we need to revisit this again. But that is a huge thing. Giving your partner space, because if you don't, I believe at that point is really not the issue that you were dealing with. When you try to force someone to continue a conversation, or if you're really just trying to force your viewpoint upon them, that's more than whatever the issue was. That's when you introduce other things into it. You're trying to control, you're being forceful, you're absolutely not listening because you want to be heard. You want to get it out. And I think this is a part of where, you're in a marriage. This is, when you have to think outside of yourself and you think about your partner. All right, even though I'm not agreeing with you, I do want the best for you right now. I don't want you to be inflicted with injury by whatever I may say. So let's stop for a moment. You do have to think about the other person, even when you're angry. And I'm not saying that that's easy to do. I'm not, and just as adults, we both know, all right, there are some things that happen. You got to deal with it right here and now. Okay. Yeah. Some things have to be dealt with, but I remember, what Linda said about the motorcycle. Like, all right, come on. Is it like, do you want to die on this hill? Like, like you gotta pick and choose. Come on. Now, if it's really of that magnitude, yes, we got to deal with it right here and now. But if it's not, and if I say I need some space, give me that space. So I think that was really, I think that was a really good point. And it really, I don't know if I want to use the word humility, but it really takes something of you to just back up and say, all right, I'm not going to force you to say I'm sorry. I don't need the apology right now.
It's funny that you placed the word humility there, because the next word that was in my mind as you were speaking and going through them, I'm sitting there going, is don't let your pride get in your way either.
Yes.
There's all of us have egos. There's no, and that's not a bad thing. And when you say to somebody you have an ego, some people will take offense at it. No, don't be offended. You're supposed to have one. It's when your ego gets outside of normal parameters that we're having problems. But when you're in that situation, especially in your marriage, you don't let your pride get in the way. You don't have to get the last word.
Yes.
You don't have to drive that point home. And there are times, like you said, you can turn around and say, look, we can agree to disagree on this one. In fact, I'm thinking in my own scenario right now, you know how I am when I literally will get the bit, or I'm like a dog with a bone when something goes wrong in an environment and I know it's wrong. And I know that there are certain governmental parameters that we commonly call laws that affect those things.
Those little things.
Those little tiny things. And and I will sit there and go, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And somebody may not be comfortable, because literally, and I know this, when you choose to do X, Y, and Z, you're kind of stepping into the boxing ring, so to speak.
Yes.
Not everybody wants to do that. And I understand that. And and I have on more than one occasion not let my pride push the point to saying, you got to do this. Even with my children. I distinctly, this is funny, but I think it kind of makes the point. I was very fortunate. I coached for years. And then when my sons got to a certain point, I said, you need to get away from me, go with another coach, because that just needs to be. But I was watching my older son play a match, and I kind of, from the sideline, went, Matt, space there. And he went, Dad, I got it. You're right. You do. You do. It's time for Dad to shut up, literally. And I think that transposes into relationships. Know when it's time to just take a step back and, okay, we'll move forward from that point.
And it's okay. It doesn't mean I'm less of a person. It doesn't mean that I'm letting you get over. It doesn't mean that I don't care. What I believe, and in fact, it actually means that I do care. I care about you. I care about me. So, and I'm trying to be level-headed about this. And again, Love Babe, we are talking about healthy communication and a healthy marriage, the way that it's supposed to be. Because you can disagree, you can have an argument, things cannot be right, and you still walk away from that situation still feeling like a whole person. If you come away from a conversation, a disagreement, or whatever, and you feel less than, you feel like something's wrong with you, that's when abuse is in a situation. That's not healthy communication at all. I had a conversation with a friend the other day. He was talking, and he said, one thing people know about me is that I'm truthful. I tell the truth. I'm just honest. He said, I will always give you the truth. And that's something that I love. I love the truth. Be real with me. Don't play games. Don't give me one story and then change it. I feel like respect me for the person who I am. Give me the truth so I know what I'm dealing with. So I know what decisions I need to make or want to make on my end. But one thing in response I did say to him, as much as I love the truth and I honor the truth, I said, you still need to be nice about it when you're delivering it.
Well,
So another part, I believe, of healthy communication in a marriage, yes, be honest, yes, be truthful, but the way you deliver it means a
I,
whole.
I will just offer this advice. The ladies will understand it. The gentlemen out there who are listening, this is this is more for them. I've been married for 43 years, as we've said before, and one thing I definitely know: when my wife says something about how does that taste, or how does this dress look, or whatever, whatever my opinion is, it is good, it's great, it's no, don't. Truth is great, but there's also a time to be diplomatic, shall we say. If you intend to, if you really don't want that conversation to flare up, be diplomatic on those scores. But no, I mean, back on a serious note, no, you're absolutely right. You could be truthful. There's the old saying, be painfully honest. Well, you don't have to be painful to be honest. You really don't have to be. There are times I'm sure we all know certain people or people we've dealt with that it's like, yeah, nah, I got to be painfully honest. But in your relationship with your spouse, your significant other, that's the person you're living with for, you want to spend your life with. There's no need to be. The last thing you should want to be is painful with anything.
Exactly.
So you can be truthful. And again, I've said this a million times. Linda and I have learned to laugh at a lot of things. All right. First thing you got to learn to do is laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, just learn to laugh at yourself. I've seen her sit back and look at me sometimes and just go, really? You realize you just made a jackass out of yourself. And yeah, you're right, I did. But and just take it for what it's worth. And again, that's humor's a good thing. So
it is. I think laughter is amazing. I've found over the years, the past few years, going through my healing process. And again, Love Bay, the healing process never stops. It doesn't. You keep going. Even when you get to a good place, you can get to, a better place. When you get to a better place, you can get to a greater place. And just when you're in that great place, you still want to maintain where you are. So the healing process never stops. But one of the things that I learned in my process is that I need to laugh. I have to laugh. And I believe in a relationship, those moments when you can laugh, I think those moments of happiness, that time of joy, when you do get to a difficult spot, I think that good time can soften it a bit, when you're going through the hard stuff. So I think there's a lot of truth in that. Laughter, being able to laugh at yourself, with yourself, at your partner, respectfully, with your partner. I do believe that can soften the situations for, when harder stuff comes in. And when you think about it, sometimes, when you get through a difficult scenario, it may take some time, but when you do look back on it, some of the things I think we can honestly say, it wasn't that serious. It really wasn't that serious. We did not need to stay up that late. So we could have went to bed a little earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. And another point of there is, and it kind of, it's in the circle that we're discussing here is receptiveness. Especially if you're people who, their careers, whatever. I mean, that's a major portion of your life. You may be in the middle of, and I have been, like, in the middle of typing a report on something or trying to get something tweaked the way I want it tweaked, and Lynn will come in and say something, and I can almost my hands kind of go, and I go, okay, wait a minute, stop. This is good. You have to be receptive. Whatever I'm doing is going to be there.
Yeah.
She felt something was important enough to say something to me because she knows obviously how important what I'm doing is to me. So take a step back again and just go, yes, and listen and be receptive. And if it's something that you think is going to involve a 20, 30-minute conversation, you can certainly say, let me knock this out and I'll stop.
Yes.
And we can address that. and most people will, they respond to that normally. Well, that first statement, I think, you and I think both know the years of working with people, they want to be heard.
Yes,
They
absolutely.
want to be heard, and that goes for our spouses, significant others. If when they come in with something, they want to, that first initial moment is very important to them. So be receptive, even if you're busy. If you have children, you'll learn that very quickly. Be receptive, even if you're busy, because children have absolutely no sense of timing. And that's fine. I mean, they're children. And later when they become your adults and they have children, you just laugh and go, "Ha ha! I remember that moment."
Yeah, yeah, gonna get it back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can give them back when I'm done playing with grandchildren. That's the great part. Love you. Go home to mom and dad. But no, it is because, and again, that's the being receptive opens up the listening,
Yes.
which is, as we just said, it's important to make sure you're listening to the individual.
Yeah. So as you were talking, I thought of two things. One, first, you mentioned careers. I think it's really important for spouses to understand the jobs or careers that their partners are in, because there are some jobs that are just right off the top that are stressful, just the job itself. So if you're married to a police officer, a fireman, if you're married to a counselor, if you're married to a pastor, the school teachers, those jobs, the jobs themselves, it's like they get up, get dressed, and go to work and walk into a door of stress. Like if you're married to a doctor or a nurse, especially in the emergency room. So it's like they're already filled with stress just on a day-to-day, what they have to operate with. No one wants to be in a stressful situation that they have to go to, because I have to go do my job and get this paycheck. And then you do that, and then you come home to stress. Nobody wants to. That's just not a good combination. So I would say be mindful of your spouse, even if you're a stay-at-home parent. That's stressful. So be mindful of that too. So when you're communicating, you have to think of these things. Do I need to give him or her, a bit of time, when he come into the door? Like as you said, can I just give you some space right now? Like I already know without you asking, you need some space, or do I need, like, this is a meeting, I need to tell you, what, I need 20-30 minutes right now. We have to deal with this right now. I would say, we do have to think of the other things that are affecting our spouses. So we want to think of them wholeheartedly, everything that concerns them, everything that affects them, because what they do may affect them being able to hear you in that moment. I can't imagine maybe being just shot at and then you come home and you have to deal with some, so you might want to decompress a minute.
There were moments, yeah, and I have to say this wholeheartedly. My wife she lived through a lot, because at the same time I was in the police department, I was still in the Navy Reserve, and there were times that I came home from a drill and or whatever, and said, "Hon, I gotta pack my sea bag and put it by the door because we may get called up." That on top of my other job, I mean, as I said, she was nominated and made sainthood a long time ago just for putting up with me. But no, you're right. It is. And I know hers is stressful, and it's a personal stress. Anybody who's in the people business is in the people business because they want to make things better for somebody.
Yes.
So you take it personally. I used to love this when I was leave your job at the door. How? I mean, I don't, carry all the pieces home, but the fact you take personally helping people, and Lynn does that. I mean, what she does, she's a living donor transplant coordinator, and I've seen her sit in the chair, and I've seen her agonize over things, and I have to be receptive to that. And when she wants to give me that whole I have to listen. That means if I could be in the middle of watching the Super Bowl, turn the volume down and listen, because I can watch the replay. I can't replay that moment that she needs. You know, but and it's the same. It's a give and a take. So I'm that truthful on that one. Anybody that works with people, I've always marveled with the leave your job at work. No, that's, as you said, you're in a stressful situation, and then you carry a piece. And if you walk into an explosion, that's not a good thing. It just becomes that much more tense. And again, I hate to say this, but statistically, we know that there's a lot of marriages have just not survived some of those careers for just that reason.
Yes.
For just that reason.
And that leads me to the next point that I thought of. I truly believe you have to set boundaries and have these conversations on how you're going to communicate and how you're going to deal with issues before there is an issue.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's easy to, have a conversation, and I can let you say everything that you want to say, and then I have my turn and I say everything that I want to say, and we nicely go back and forth because, there's not a problem. But when something does happen, when we're on edge and there's really, really something that we have to deal with, that's not the time to start saying, well, you need to respect me right now and hear what I'm saying. That's just going to add fuel to whatever fire.
I was going to say that throws a little gas on the fire. Yeah.
And that's not you being, sweet and kind and nice and just trying to get a point across. No, that's another dig. So all that to say, before there is an issue, there has to be a conversation, like, how are we going to deal with things, as we come up, how do we communicate? And for me, a perfect example, we can have, and I can do this with anyone. We can have a heated moment, but especially with a significant other. Well, when I do get a significant other, in no scenario whatsoever, don't raise your voice at me. I can't deal with that. And I understand that there are some scenarios where you could be in a conversation and emotions may rise, and it may not be someone standing in front of me just intentionally yelling, but just even that slight rise in the octave of voice because of me, because of my past, because of what I dealt with, I can't handle that. If you raise your voice at me, I will absolutely, I will shut down, and that's just it. But I know that. So that's a conversation for me to have. That's information for me to present, in the beginning, when we're sitting and discussing a relationship, I can't handle this. Do not speak to me, in this manner. Don't raise your voice or whatever, because it's just not going to go well. I don't care what you're saying. I don't care what happens. I don't care what it is. You could be talking about a Disney Channel. If you raise your voice, all I hear is that you've raised your voice, and that triggers anxiety in me. That triggers fear in me. That triggers self-defense in me. It just comes up, and it takes me to a place where I don't want to be. Triggers, start to happen. But again, I know that's a conversation. That's something I need to put on the table up front. And so, and then it needs to be worked out. If you feel heated, if you feel strongly about something, then because I told you this, you need to come up with a plan, and you need to understand how you're going to handle it, because yelling at me is not the answer.
Right.
It's not going to work. So we have to work through all of that. So again, I would love for you to share your thought on it. I really believe you have to sit down and set your boundaries before an issue happens, before a problem happens, and be serious about it. I don't think that's something to joke around with. I mean, really serious. This is this is my boundary. This is what I need. This is what can't happen. Really serious about it. Take it seriously, and be honest. I'm not going to lie to myself. I'm not going to try to, force myself to have thicker skin, so to say. No, I don't need thicker skin. You're not going to yell at me.
You're absolutely right, because and a lot of people do that. I know I've done it on occasion with no matter who. Um, Somebody will say something or do or whatever that just rubs you kind of the wrong way,
Mhm.
and you absorb it, and you keep it there, and you don't say anything, and then it occurs again, and you absorb it again. And as you said, if you haven't set that boundary, you're going to continue to absorb it until one day you're the one that goes boom,
Yeah.
and that's not good either. You're because again, you're dealing with all those little darts that are missing the board, and they're sticking in you, and you're just trying to. And then everybody's got a everybody has a saturation toleration limit.
Yes.
So I mean, if you know what, as you say, the I don't want to use the word trigger because it's not. I mean, there are triggers, but when you're talking in that point, that point that I don't want to cross that. I don't want this to happen.
Right.
That everybody knows the playing field at that point in time,
Yeah.
and should stay there and should be there. I mean, we're human. We're human. There are, listen, I love to tease my wife because she is from the northern New Jersey, New York area. And when she gets behind the wheel of a car, I just go, you should have been a cab driver. That's all there is to it. Because the New York comes out. And, and at first there were times I was on, then it became humorous because I would, just sit there and go to the person driving by and so you should hear what the voices in my wife's head are calling you. But I know her, and I can pull her back.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, listen, really, seriously, calm
I
down.
think that's huge. I think what you just said is huge. You said you know her. I think you
Yeah.
have to learn your partner. You
Oh,
have to
yes.
learn. And communication is not just words. It's body language. It's your temperament. It's everything. And you have to learn your spouse just as much as you want them to be attentive and learn you. And there are some scenarios, some situations, that will happen. You may be the only one who can get through to your spouse or your partner. So you may be the only one to be able to dial them down from 100 and bring them down. They may hear your voice and be able to receive from you. But if you are the person agitating them, if you are a person who is blowing things up, they can't rest in hearing you. They can't feel comfortable in that. So you have to learn them. You have to be responsible about it. And really think about what you do. And Dr. MacDonald has she's commented she's wasn't able to get into StreamYard, but she just sent a note to us and she said she totally agrees that once a person speaks in a raised voice, that it will cause a retaliation. And so that's who you have to be careful about how you're speaking to your significant other. And again, in my case, my retaliation is silence. So you could be in an argument, you could be going back and forth. One person yells, raises their voices, the other person's going to raise their voice. I'm not raising my voice. I have nothing else to say after that point. I will be silenced, and my silence can be deafening. and then we have a whole nother, a plethora of issues that will come into play. And so again, it's like whatever the initial issue was will never get addressed because all of these other things will come in if you do not communicate properly. And I believe you have to learn your partner. You have to know your partner. That means you have to care. You and not just marriage, but a relationship. If you're in a relationship, you have to care. If it's a friendship, if you're dating, this other person means something. You have to, in a healthy way, you put this other person above you. You do. And again, I stress in a healthy way because you want the best for this individual. I want the best for my friend. I want the best for my husband. I want the best for my wife. So that means I'm going to care about your feelings. I'm going to care about your emotions. Even if I have to say something to you, again, if it can be true and honest, but it may be difficult, but I'm going to say it to you in the best way possible. And Dr. Marie just gave a comment. She said, knowing your partner is key. And I believe, and I'll ask you, Bob, to add to this. Part of knowing your partner is knowing how to give them the truth in a way that they can receive it. Because how I need to be communicated to is not what someone else needs. So you have to know how to get it through.
Absolutely true. There's no, that's not a tightrope act. I mean, and I think another thing in that getting it through to somebody, and you mentioned it, is your body language.
Yes.
Your body language is key. I can be handing somebody a bouquet of flowers, and my body language can come across as he's going to hit me in 2 seconds.
Yes.
And your body language is key. And that's knowing your partner too. There's people respond differently to how somebody holds themselves, how they conduct themselves in a conversation, and particularly in a conversation where you're at odds.
Yes.
I know, and this was when I was a young person, and I had a professor pull me up. I told you I was the guy who tried to play football in college, but also like theater. So I was like two different ends of the spectrum with some of the people I was dealing with. But I had a habit when I was talking to somebody, if I wanted to make a point, I would just go on the table with my hand. And I didn't slam it, but I would just, a little tap on the table. And the one professor he said, you're my gentle Ben. You're this big guy and you work out. And when you do that, you're scaring some people. And it never dawned on me. And I stopped that immediately. I've never done that unless I mean to. So if my hand, I know where I picked that up. My grandfather, who I spent most of my childhood with because my dad wasn't around, that was his way. And I just absorbed it, assimilated it. And then I realized now with me, it was different because I knew my grandfather and I knew that didn't mean anything.
Yes.
However, if people don't know you and and so I understood it. And that's, again, that's a body language. That's a knowing the person who's receptive to who is not. And again, it was the best piece of advice I ever got. So yeah. And that's the other one too. Don't take, when somebody says to you, I'm not comfortable with that, don't take it personally.
Yes.
They're not trying to cut you. They're telling you what they're not comfortable with. They're not saying, hey, you're a buffoon because you did this to me. What they're telling you is, I'm not comfortable with that.
Yes.
Be receptive enough, to take that piece of advice.
So I think that was just a perfect statement you made, because I know with myself in particular, if I'm standing in front of someone and if I'm saying, this is how I need to handle this situation, or this is what I need from you, it's not accusatory. I'm not blaming you for anything, but in my mind, for me, in fact, I care about you enough and I care about our relationship enough to tell you this is what I need. And so if I'm in a conversation like that with someone, then that means I'm holding you in a high standard. That means that you're in a place in my life where I'm bringing you or allowing you to come into somewhere that's sensitive. So I'm just letting you know how to handle that sensitive part of me. So I wholeheartedly agree. Don't be offended, if your partner or your friend, your significant other, your spouse is saying to you, this is what I need. It's not accusatory. It's just in that healthy state, in that healthy space, that person's actually saying, I care about you enough. I care about our relationship enough to, before we have a problem, I know that these things will bother me. So I just want to put it on the table. And I think that is that's a compliment. It's a great compliment. I want to share some more resources, and then Bob, I ask you another question that I just thought of. And Dr. Marie MacDonald, she just agreed that, body language speaks loudly. Yes, it absolutely does. Love Babe, we want to welcome you again to Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia here on Love Babe Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern with a replay on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. and then again on Thursdays and Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern. And Love Babe, we want you to remember that we are rising out of the ashes together. I want to share with you a resource from Australia. It's the National Family Violence Counseling Service. Their website is www.1800respect.org.au. Their phone number is 1-800-737-732. Then we have the Canadian Women's Foundation. Their website is canadianwomen.org. Their phone number is 1-866-293-4483. And we have IDAS, which is in England. It's a specialist charity in Yorkshire supporting people affected by domestic abuse and sexual violence. Their website is idas.org.uk. Their email address is info@idas.org.uk. And then their phone number is 03000-110-110. And Bob, before I ask you another question, you want to share the resources again that you shared earlier?
Yes, ma'am. And I'm actually going to add, this is
Okay.
ironic because you brought in Australia, and great minds definitely think alike, because I have a whole list of Australia with the same family and domestic violence support in Australia. There is and I'm assuming NSW is New South Wales, and domestic violence line, which is 1-800-656-463. Again, 1-800-656-463. And the others that I had put out before were the National Teen Dating Abuse Helpline, 1-866-331-9474. Again, 1-866-331-9474. And the National Stalking Resource Center, 1-800-FYI call or 1-800-394-2255. And their email is gethelp, G-E-T, help, H-E-L-P, at ncvc.org. And for our listeners in South Africa, the people opposed to woman abuse, PAWA, the website is www.powa.co.za. Their telephone number is 011-642-4345. Email is info, I-N-F-O, at powa.co.ca. Or Z-A, I'm sorry. Z-A, Z as in zebra A.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Bob.
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to ask you now, because many of us, well, not many of us, I think all of us, when you meet anyone and you're going for it, you want to put your best foot forward. You put the best version of you. That's who you bring to the table. I want to ask you, what advice do you have or would you give to dating couples moving towards marriage on how to communicate?
That's a good question. I again, let's start with honesty, and let's. I don't know. In a dating situation, everybody's different. Some people are comfortable giving their life history. Some people are not.
Mm-hmm.
Some people fall somewhere in the middle. Many of us fall somewhere in the middle. But I think you have to initiate the conversation, as you say, in the dating environment if you're moving towards marriage, because now you're whereas you see somebody several hours of the day, now that's going to turn into the majority of your day. And marriage is people forget it's marriage, it's love. They speak in those terms, but it's also a partnership. It is a definite partnership, and in any good partnership, it has to be 50-50. You have to have that understanding. There has to be a give and take. I think that's the other thing you need to realize moving from dating towards marriage is that I'm just like my trike. I'm not going to get everything I want. That's, that's the reality. But communication definitely, there has to be the honesty to begin with. And again, um, know the person that you're coming into. I joke about, not getting a baked potato for 7 years. But it was something that didn't matter to me. You know what I mean? Didn't matter to me. That wasn't a hot spot for me. I know there were some people that may have been, and discuss some of the give and take you expect.
Yes.
Discuss some of that give and take you expect. I mean, and again, be receptive to like when I was in the careers where physically, I could have been in danger. And Lynn, she got one of those phone calls one night. It was, God love the people I worked with. They started the conversation with, "Bob's okay." Well, my wife almost went to the roof. Be receptive to that, understand that, and be able to talk through that with the person. If you're stepping into a partnership with somebody that's in that line of work, you got to have that understanding. And again, even as you say, teachers, doctors, lawyers, they're, have that understanding, have that conversation moving in. And understand that things aren't written in stone. Marriages need to be fluid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have your parameters and your boundaries, but life will throw us curveballs, and marriage you have to be fluid. And I think if you've been honest with each other, your relationship will be strong enough to be fluid, to move forward, because you know what the base is. I hope that makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. I think an issue that some people have in holding back part of themselves is that they don't want to lose this person. They don't want to lose this relationship. Well, if you can't accept me for who I am, then we don't have a real relationship, because you really don't know me.
Right.
If you're holding yourself back because you don't want this person to leave, that's not good. That's not going to help. So you need to be clear. This is what I need. This is how I need you to communicate with me, and I need you to tell me how you need me to communicate with you. You have to be honest about that, so you know how to do it going forward. Because I can pretend for a little while, but it's not going to hold up. Eventually I will go into whatever my patterns are. And that's just it. So a lot of people, again, want to put their best foot forward. But your best foot has to be authentically you. Don't hide it. If I have a problem with being yelled at, so I'm going to tell you that in the very beginning. For me, silence is a defense mechanism for me, and I know it is. And the Dr. MacDonald just made a point. She said that silence itself, and this is the other side, silence itself can ignite sparks. And so there is a time when silence should end, when there is a matter on the table to be dealt with. So on the other side, instead of silence being a response in communication, silence can also be used as a weapon. And so that's not good either. And that is not, the moment when you say, I need space, and you walk away. Because when you say I need space, that's us agreeing we will come back to this matter at some time. So like I said before, give me 20 minutes, give me a couple hours, or we need to come back to this tomorrow. If you say I need space, you also have to say, this is when I will be ready to deal with it. And at some point it does have to be dealt with. So you can't come back 2 hours later and say, give me another 2 hours, give me another 2 hours. No, you have to deal with the issue. So you don't want to use silence as a weapon also. And I don't think any of this can be taken in and just learned overnight. I think there's a reason that relationships, hopefully good relationships, last over time, because you need time. You need time to get to know each other. You need time to talk it out. You need time to learn, and nobody gets it right, in the first few moments, the first few weeks or whatever. But if you're honest about it, I believe if you really have the best intentions for this other person, then you will do your best, to make this work. Like you said, you have to be fluid. You change when you need to change. And that does not mean lowering your standards. That doesn't mean changing your boundaries. It may mean something like maybe every Saturday we sat down, we had a family meeting at 1 o'clock. That might change. Maybe we have family meetings on Tuesday mornings now, or something like that. Maybe your work schedule changes, so we operate around that. But the core value doesn't change. The communication is still there. We're still respecting each other. We're still trying to be as clear as possible. And I think, and I had a conversation on yesterday with a friend. We were talking. There were a couple of things he said I didn't understand, and so I really said, I don't understand, and he explained it to me. That was wonderful. Like, I got clarity, and he understood. I was not trying to be smart. I was not trying to prolong the conversation. I was trying to get understanding. Because if we keep going forward and I don't understand what you're saying right now, everything else you say after is going to be a wash. So you have to be able to say, I need clarity. This doesn't make sense to me. And if I say it doesn't make sense or I don't understand, that doesn't mean you're a horrible person. That doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It's just, I just need, some more information, or give it to me in a different way. Maybe I don't, understand it the way somebody else would. So for instance, if you're at work, you speak to your partners a different way, than Linda may speak to the nurses. There's some words and acronyms and everything, you use at work. When you get home, you have to explain it a little bit or change it up a bit. Nothing is wrong with saying, I don't understand. I need a bit more clarity. That is what healthy communication is. That is what adults do, again, and you do not wait until there is a blow up and then you want to try to fix communication. That's only going to make it worse.
No, and you're absolutely correct. As I said, marriage is definitely a partnership, and it's definitely a learning curve. Mm-hmm. It's so your partner, things, you get certain things on the table, but again, life is fluid. Things are fluid, and I'm 43 years into this partnership, and it's still a learning curve. But it's good. It's a good learning curve. It's not a, oh my God, where did that surprise come from? No, and plus, in a marriage, I know, oh boy, I know where I was at 25, and I know where I am at 70.
Right.
They are two different people. Well, not completely, but there are two different approaches. Yes. To things now, and that's the way it should be. I don't remember who it was. Who made this statement? Some famous person, but they said, young people should rush in where angels fear to tread, and as people mature, they should keep that optimism and have enough restraint to walk in, not run in. Yeah. And then that's how your marriage goes. It does. When you first start, and then you learn, okay, we're not going to run. Let's hold each other's hand. Let's walk through this at the moment. So, again, this is silly, but it's a prime example. My wife and I went on a visit to the Highlands of Scotland, which is beautiful. I recommend anybody go to Highland. It's beautiful. It's just drop dead gorgeous country. But myself, I'm going to go take a walk up that hill. Lynn, do you want to come with me? That's not a hill. That's a mountain. I'm going to the store. See you when you get back. There was a definite understanding. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I just, when she came, look at the what I bought. Oh, it's gorgeous. Gorgeous, hon. And then she would listen to me discuss the view from the top of the mountain. But it's and that's okay. Yes. Because you know this. I get up every day and I work out. I go to the gym. That is not what my wife wants to do. Every once in a while I'll talk her into doing some Tai Chi with me or something like that, and she'll sit down. And I'm done. Okay. We know that. I know that. And again, it's part of our lives. We laugh about it. We love each other about it. And I mean, if, as a matter of fact, if I'm having a bad day, Lynn, why don't you go to the gym? Why don't you go? Just go. Get it out of your system, because she knows me.
Yeah. But that's awesome. So that's what we talked about before. You need to learn your partner. And sometimes communication isn't us having a conversation right now. Sometimes it's, I know what you need right now that's going to help you. So I will facilitate that so you can be better and do what, you need to do for yourself.
And I'm sorry. I'm going to throw something out there. It sounds really, I don't mean it to sound trite. It does a little bit. Do something, just get in the habit of doing something nice unexpectedly for somebody. It makes such a difference because it reminds them that you value them. You really do value them. And it doesn't have to be big. I know the local food store where I go shopping, and they had these little flower bouquet things. Mm-hmm. And I would out of nowhere, just bring one home. And it made her so happy. And it also gave me some credit in case I messed something up. But again, it's that, and she does the same for me. Like, she'll come back. Oh, look, I got, she knows, like, I think of something. I like chocolate chip cookies. Out of nowhere, she'll come in with, hey, look what I got for you. And I'm like, hey, thank you. Those little tiny things are big things.
Yes.
They really are big things in the overall picture, because the person knows you value them. And so.
Well, that is awesome. You and Linda are just great examples for us.
I do highly recommend the flowers because it buys you credit, guys. Trust me on that.
43 years. He knows what he's talking about, Love Bay. Follow his advice. So, Love Bay, on next week, we're going to try to get this the StreamYard thing worked out. But Dr. Marie MacDonald is going to be with us next Friday. On next Friday, we are going to talk about arguing, how to argue, because arguments will come. It's going to happen, but there's a right way to do it. So that's what we're going to discuss on next Friday with Dr. Marie. Bob will be with us also. Love Bay, if you want to catch up on previous episodes from the program, you can visit our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence DV. We want to thank you so much for joining Suffering in Silence with Minister Tio on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. In Love Bay, we are rising out of the ashes together. And we do want you to remember Dr. Marie MacDonald's program, The Marriage Hour, which is also on Love Bay. And thank you so much again, Bob, for being with us. Do you want to leave Love Bay with any lasting words on tonight?
No, hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Just remember, you entered into this partnership for a reason, because you really cared about somebody. Put that first. Put the care first. And it's okay to come in second.
Yes.
It's okay this is not a competition. It's okay to come in second and have and put that care first. So anyway, everybody, blessings to everybody. Thank you for having me here. It's always a privilege.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Love Bay. We love you. Have a good night.